What role should be your main in Overwatch? Should you be a DPS? Are you crazy good at getting kills? What about support? Maybe you're a better healer, or maybe you're the single tank for your team. What would be best for you? Let's find that out right now. And you're gonna want to wait to the very end because I have a tip that applies to all roles. And no one else is telling you this right now. I think you're gonna want to see it. Let's go ahead and start with DPS. A lot of people want to play DPS. It seems to be the most popular role, but this brings me to my first point. The thing about DPS is a lot of people want to do it. There's the most choices. It seems to be the most popular, like I mentioned, but that doesn't mean everyone can do it. And we're talking about competitive here for all three roles. I want to get that out of the way first. So how to know if you should be maining the DPS role? This is a very important role for your team as a whole, as are all of the roles right now, but this one in particular, you have to do as good as the enemy team or better. You can't be doing worse. That could potentially throw your entire game. DPS are very important because they really allow the tank or another hero to start making the play. A lot of people say DPS do damage, and of course that's true, but eliminations, the actual physical stats that you see on the leaderboard, are what really matter here. A lot of the time you get someone very low, but you don't secure the kill because they have healers on their enemy team. So damage doesn't matter as much as the actual elimination. So you have to be one of those people that are exceptionally good at it. I mean, exceptionally good at shooting, exceptionally good at aiming, exceptionally good at recognizing who to shoot when, not unloading all of your ammo just on the tank. And you have to be able to do it. Not even just the knowledge, but you need a lot of mechanical skill here as well. Quite possibly the most mechanical skill out of all three of the roles, but that's another topic. The point is, if you're not exceptionally good at dropping kills in other games as well as this, it's not your role, and that's okay. You can still be amazing on support or tank, but I think that's where a lot of the problem lies whenever you get really bad DPS. They don't understand who to shoot when, and they also probably are better off in another role because they're not exceptionally good at getting kills, right? I need to stress that you can't just be kind of good. I need my DPS to be feared by the enemy team. That's the only way it's really going to work. So boom, if you're really good at picking the right heroes, picking counter picks to whatever their team has, and you've always just been exceptionally good at actually securing the kill, not just damage, then DPS is your role. All right, on to the tank role. I'll say right now, tanking is my main, it's my favorite thing to do, but sometimes it's also just the most frustrating as well. Tanking is a bit different than Overwatch 1. In Overwatch 1, there were 2 tanks on each side. In Overwatch 2, there's just 1. That does a few things, but the main thing about tanking is counterplay now. And I mean the main thing. If you know who Flats is, he says you get the advantage if you lose the first fight as tank because you can just immediately swap to the counter pick. So for instance, you go out as Monkey, they also go out as Monkey, then you die, you lose the first fight, you come right back out as Hog or Junker Queen and destroy them because at that point you have the advantage. So there's a lot more pressure for yourself to know exactly what to do and when because there's only one on each side. Not only that, you really need to be able to play all of the tanks because you need to be able to be versatile and swap pick to whatever they're playing. People talk about maining certain heroes. I would say the tank role is the absolute worst role to main any hero. You need to be able to play all of them competitively. That's the only way you're going to rank up as a tank and be efficient. Sometimes it's appropriate to match the enemy tank. Sometimes it's appropriate to counter the enemy tank. And sometimes no changes are needed at all. There are some tanks who aren't really the one to pick to counter another one. This role might actually require the most experience and the actual in-game knowledge out of all of the roles. Mechanics still matter here, but it's more about knowledge and knowing what to do and when. And here's another big thing. You have to be good at communicating. If you're good at communicating with your team, telling people what to go after when, saying when you're going to actually make the push. It's not about just having that knowledge, but communicating that knowledge and orchestrating that with your team, which is partly why I said it's the most frustrating for myself earlier. So if you can play all of the tank heroes, you are good at communicating, and you have very high game knowledge, lots of time on the game, tank is your role.
I killed Carrie. Wait, got it.
Nice.
And Sojourn.
All right, on to the most worthless role in all of Overwatch, support. I'm kidding. Support's actually extremely important. The support role has got a lot of changes since Overwatch 1, but they are the strongest they have ever been as of right now. One of the running jokes in my community right now is a DPS versus a support 1v1. The support should always win. They are just so incredibly strong right now. From the purples to the sleeps to the BAP lamps to the health regeneration on every hero. I mean, it's incredible. they are crazy. So just know if you're picking this role, you're very, very strong and probably one of the most capable on the team. That's what makes the support role so enticing right now. The versatility. If you need to put an extra DPS for your team, you're able to do that. Pick Baptiste, pick Moira. Heck, you can even do it on Mercy now. Although you should probably damage boost instead. I think we all get the point. You are some of the strongest on the team and can make lots of plays depending on what hero you are. Really good Anas can win and lose a game for very good sleeps and really good purples, as well as cancel a ton of ults. Baptiste places his lamps in the right spot. He's never going to have anyone die on him. Moira, don't even get me started with Moira. She's unkillable, as well as Kiriko. The point is, support is extremely strong right now, and if you're going to pick the support hero, you can decide what you want to do based on what your team needs, right? And that's a bit different based on what we talked about earlier, where you really only have one specific role. On support, you can kind of change that up based on what you need. This role is also very important to have good movement. If you have extremely good movement and are able to be very versatile, you can be an incredible support. The biggest thing with supports is you don't want them to go down. If you lose a support on your team, they can push you like crazy. From Mercy's fly ability to Lucio's skating on the walls to Kiriko's teleport and wall climb, I would say this is the most important movement role out of all of the other ones for movement anyway. So if you're an extremely adaptable player, you have very good movement and you can change based on what your team needs, then support is your role.
They're all good. They're all good. Oh, not that guy.
Someone's got to get that fucking bird.
Dead. All right, so that's all three rules. But right now, we're going to tell you something that applies to every single role, no matter what you're picking. A penalty that you get for stacking. So now you're like, penalty? Yes, it's not that serious, but you're not going to be able to have just the best of the best teammates if you're already stacking with pretty good people. And that has to do with how you stack with your teammates or if you're doing solo. Now, I touched on this before. Until you start to reach about mid-diamond to low masters, everyone on your team is just going to be a gamble if you don't feel it for yourself. But there are penalties with stacking. If you stack 2, 3, 4, and 5, they always make it harder depending on what you stack with. For instance, if you stack with 1 tank, 1 DPS, and 1 support, although that's really good for you to get your team together and make a lot of plays, the ones that you don't fill, for instance, that other DPS slot and that other support slot, are probably going to be much worse than your stack. The game has to compensate somewhere for you having extreme coordination with your people you're stacking with. So if you notice, a lot of the time there's a slot you didn't fill, for instance DPS, they are going to make sure they are not as good as yours most of the time. Sometimes you get them that are good. A lot of the time they're much worse than yours, as well as the healer or whatever you're not stacking with. A lot of times stacking without a tank is very scary. Like I said, there's only one of them, and if they're terrible, that's your whole game. Another thing you might be thinking is, what if I 5 stack? Well, if you do 5 stack, the penalty that you're going to be getting is on the other team. You're going to have a very coordinated team that is usually playing together a lot. And if you're doing that with your team, then so be it. It'll be a good game. But just know 5 stacking makes it extremely difficult for your matchups. Much harder than just going in with 1, 2, or 3. Like I've said before, I recommend doing 2 and 3 stacks, no more, no less, to increase your chances the most. This penalty is just something to be aware about. And no, you might have to have someone else pick up the slack a little. Friendly Tiger coming in the back line. Huge! Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helps you. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any other questions for me, I go live on TikTok and Twitch just about every single evening. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. Also, check out one of these videos now. The algorithm really thinks you'll enjoy it.